On Tuesday, Sarasota voters go to the polls to begin the process of picking 2 city commissioners. There are 8 candidates for 2 at-large seats. Last night, we had a lively debate featuring 4 of those candidates. Tonight, the other 4, former Commissioner and Mayor Fred Atkins, businessman Martin HYDE, business owner Mikhail Sandstrom, and retired executive and Sarasota Planning Board member Patrick GANNON. Here are the basic rules. You'll have a minute each to respond to questions I ask, and each of you can take 30 seconds to respond to those comments if you so choose. We'll be kind of flexible with the rules to add depending on how the conversation goes. And just like last night, let's start with the issue of development. Specifically, the debate that's been going on about whether the City Commission should have to approve each and every development as it comes up. It's one of the hottest issues during this campaign. And Fred, why don't we start with you in terms of whether the Commission should be in the position to approve any of these developments?
Yes, of course they should. We should never have relinquished our rights to do that. It was a mistake in 2003, and it still has shown itself to be a very wrong idea. We worked at it, and we were forced by attorneys and developers to adhere to the Diwandy plan because they were sure that if we didn't, we would be sued our socks off. And so, yes, the buck stops at the Commission. It should have never been allowed to not stop there. Administrators haven't looked out for the Commission, and so at any time the administrators should have brought it back to the Commission and made sure that the Commission was able to change an ill-fated plan in the mid-flight instead of waiting 6 years to all of a sudden get stopped.
Okay, Martin?
Well, because what Fred doesn't tell you is that he voted for that. But as far as administrative approval is concerned, it's a little bit of a smokescreen. The truth is, it's about the code. It's about what people like, what people don't like. You're not going to get people to agree something next door to them, something adjacent to them. By definition, the camel is a horse designed by committee. If you ask 10 people the same question about the same subject, you're likely to get 10 different answers. And the reality is that, Burke Harris, you will get sued. So far as I'm concerned, it's the code that we need to look at, and of course the people that actually agreed it.
Fred, I'm going to give you a chance to respond to that in a moment, but I want to get through the other candidates. Mikhail?
You know, I think private property rights is a certainly hot topic issue because we don't want to find ourselves in lawsuits. However, I would like to see the developers have a little bit more of green initiatives, such as having solar panels on the rooftops to reduce the amount of the burden of climate change. Perhaps having green rooftops, gardens on the rooftops, something that actually is making the public happy about the buildings come around. I can kind of relate to stop when it comes to wider sidewalks and traffic issues. However, what I don't want to do is see the city in a bunch of lawsuits. So I think it could be some balance.
Let me interject, because the question was, should the City Commission have to approve all new development projects?
All new buildings, you know, perhaps new buildings coming up, but if there's already an existing building and there's a business that want to come in there and develop, I don't necessarily think that the Commission should be, making a choice as to existing structures.
Patrick?
There was a time when they did, and they had commission meetings that went on till midnight and on and on. In fact, I'm sitting on the City Planning Board. Last night we had 4 hours of planning board time on one property, 3.5 hours on one property, Demarquet Hotel on Palm Avenue. That went through the City Commission in 2006. They had 3 planning board sessions, public hearings, and then 3 City Commission meetings, public hearings. And yet it still ended up, after all that input, public input and commission decisions, that a building permit was issued. So it's in the code that has to be changed. It's the code that drives that. The City Commission can help set what that code is. That's where the Commission should be focused on, is in setting the code and the right density and the height restrictions.
Patrick, Fred, I want to give you just a couple of seconds to respond to something Martin said, that you originally voted to change for...
I readily admit that when I said that I was on the Commission in 2003 when that issue passed, and I was against it then. But you know, I had enough political savvy to understand that when I came on the Commission, the vote was coming up in 2 or 3 months. I had not been in the middle of the process of resolving that issue. I knew I didn't like it. But what I did was told them unequivocally that this is not going to work, this does not work, and it has not worked.
All right, we're coming up against a break, but Patrick...
Just real quickly on that. Last night you had a candidate who said there is no community voice in the development process under administrative review. That's not true. As the downtown candidate and leader of the Downtown Condo Association, Neighborhood Association, we have held frequent meetings with developers and had community input to those development processes and achieved more through those community meetings than you ever do through a judicial meeting.
All right, we are just getting started on our debate. It continues right after this break, so stay with us. Welcome back to our debate. We are being joined tonight by four of the candidates for the Sarasota City Commission: former Commissioner and Mayor Fred Atkins, businessman Martin HYDE, business owner Mikhail Sandstrom, and retired executive and Sarasota Planning Board member Patrick Gannon. Let's continue a moment with the issue of development, because I mean, we want to see our beloved city grow, but there are a lot of people think it is growing too much in ways that are taking away from the quality of life, which is why we have groups out there like STOP, who want to bring, in their opinion, some sensibility to the process. So, Martin, are we seeing too much development, and is it coming at the cost of our lifestyle here in downtown Sarasota?
No, I don't think so. I mean, when I was a kid, obviously I didn't grow up here. I grew up in London. I've been here for nearly 20 years. But when I used to go up to the city, there's a sense of excitement. You know, the downtown bayfront, the downtown core, is 0.6 of a mile of 26 miles of our whole city, you know, of 700 plus miles of the county. I think we can give that over to an urban and metropolitan environment. And nobody's talking about concreted over the bay. The reality is that what we're talking about is a lifestyle choice. If people don't want to live in an urban environment, there's still 25.4 miles of the city where they can live.
Mikhail, too much?
No, you know, I believe that growth's good. It's just the fact that we need to have a little bit higher density so we can fit in more people. Right now, you're looking at the average rent in Sarasota is $994. However, the fair market rate is $751. So it's really hard for people to be moving into Sarasota in terms of, we become a commuter city. So if they're going to be developing, they certainly need to be alleviating some of this traffic issues that's coming along with. So I think that's one of the...
I hope we could leave some time to talk about affordable housing. But Patrick, I wanted to give you a shot here. And specifically, people point to the view and say it's blocking the views of the water. And they use it as an example of development run amok.
It's actually an example of the code run amok. The developer actually came forward and wanted to have wider setbacks from the street, and the city code required the setback they have. Now, it's still 15 feet from the curb to the building. There's going to be an 8-foot sidewalk along US 41 and a 12-foot sidewalk along Gulfstream. So when it's finally done, it's going to look nice. But the point is that it's what the city previous commission set in place with the code. The development that's run amok is because that there is too much giveaway. And the biggest area for the development right now is in the Rosemary district. We've tracked that. There's over 12 projects there. And what caused that was they set about to have infill development, which was a good thing, economic development. However, they went from density of 25 units an acre to 75 units an acre and did not require that the buildings be set back further or have more trees planted.
Fred, where do you stand in terms of those forces in Sarasota who want to slow it down a little bit and those who obviously do not?
I don't think that we need to slow it down tremendously. I think we need to respect the process that we've gone through and admit that we have done an amazing job of attracting developers to the city of Sarasota. Nobody would have imagined this would have happened, but nobody imagined that the down cycle in the economy was going to create all these monsters that come in here with big money and take advantage of our poor little tax base. And so what happened was the city sold us down the river by allowing everybody to do everything. Before I left the city commission in 2011, we had conditions in all of those developments where they're supposed to put attainable housing in each one of those developments that gets density increase. They gave it up.
All right.
You know, that's a lot of the developments coming from out of state, out of towners coming in developers. So I'd like to see a little more local developers, perhaps incentives to have local developers being implementing their projects as opposed to bringing out of towners, because they understand the community, they understand the look and feel of Sarasota.
There have been some people like Harvey Van Groff who have tried to bring affordable housing to Sarasota and has had a hard time before the commission that all of you wish to serve on.
Well, you know, Harvey's a smart guy, and Harvey's got the ability, he understands his business model is to keep costs down. Well, the pushback that he's getting from the City Commission is largely reflective of the fact that they got burned when they did their deal in Rosemary, when they increased that density threefold. That's why they're upset with Harvey.
All right. Well, hold on one second. We have to take a commercial break to pay the bills. Our debate will continue in our second half hour right after we check on the weather. Stay with us. Tonight we are hearing from 4 of the 8 candidates running for the Sarasota City Commission: former Commissioner and Mayor Fred Atkins, businessman Martin HYDE, business owner Mikhail Sandstrom, and retired executive and Sarasota Planning Board member Patrick Gannon. Patrick, you wanted to take 30 seconds to finish our conversation about development.
Yeah, quickly, we're talking about how do we bring about more attainable housing, which is absolutely essential to near the downtown area. And what Harvey Vengroff has been doing has been a really great thing. I know, sitting on the planning board, he's come before us, and most of the things that he's been requesting have been approved. We certainly need to reduce the requirement for like 2 parking spaces, because in fact most of the people that are staying there may not even have 1 car, much less nothing. So those are the kind of things that are being approved to move forward on. I think we want to keep that kind of housing going forward.
I do want to move on, but Harvey Vengroff has basically stormed out of City Commission meetings in a huff over what he believes are the unfair requirements that the Commission was making him agree to in terms of the affordable housing space. And it seems we're in jeopardy of losing that opportunity.
That's a good point, because when you have a consumer in a marketplace, you want less barriers between the two, and so I can certainly, understand his frustrations that he perceives to be barriers between him building affordable housing.
And, all right, really quickly, Martin and Fred, I want to give you an opportunity to chime in on that.
I think it's a tactic with Harvey. I remember when he was going to go move to Costa Rica. God bless him, but I think he'll get what he wants in the end.
Fred.
Harvey is a special guy. I really like Harvey. He's got some great ideas, but he's got a model that requires him to get all he can, and he works hard at it.
Okay, let's move on to another issue that is important to a lot of people, and that is the issue of Lido Key and Siesta Key. Obviously, we have to do something. We've done broadcasts on this issue in terms of the need for renourishment, but the folks who live on Siesta Key are concerned that the renourishment is going to affect their own beaches, and they are threatening litigation. Miguel, I think we'll start with you this time. Do you support the legal action those residents are trying to undertake to stop this?
The issue with the Lido Beach erosion is obviously rising sea levels, so that's the first thing that I would like to address. And in terms of bringing more sand in there, I think it's a difficult thing, because we want to get sand as quick as possible. However, if it's just eroding, perhaps there needs to be a look into installing some jetties there to stop the water from eroding the beach. Certainly there needs to be some serious, contemplation on as to how to fix the rising sea level.
Patrick?
I certainly understand the concern of the residents of Siesta Key, as well as the Lido Key. I mean, they're concerned about what's happening to their island, et cetera. But as somebody who's trained engineer, I try to make decisions based on the facts, not fear. And a lot of the lawsuit is based upon the fear. And so the city of Sarasota has gone extra means to try and work with the Corps of Engineers to come up with a plan that's workable, and to then set aside $2.5 million as an insurance fund that says if anything does go wrong, we're going to be able to do even more for it. So no, I don't support the lawsuit from the Siesta Key side. I think if they actually look at the facts and the plan that's been put forward, it's going to protect their interests as well as the interest. Because on Lido Key, it's an environmental hazard right now from the stormwater that's already sweeping over the ocean just for medium-sized storms.
Fred, do you support that legal action?
No, I don't. It's one of those lawsuits that is basically a stalling tactic. I think that the city has come up with the fairest proposal to remedy the situation. If the Lido Beach residents would just fairly look at it, it will be workable and doable, because the sand is going to impact everybody, and it's going to keep going round and around and around like it has been for the last 1,000 years.
Martin, do you support that?
You know, they're not threatening a lawsuit, they've actually done one, and it's largely because the city manager did a terrible job in negotiating with Siesta. The truth is that we've renourished that beach about 17 times. It's not a natural piece of land, you understand that, and it's reclaimed land, and it's always going to wash away. Right now we're in an emergency situation. We're not going to get through this lawsuit in the next 6 months or 18 months, it'll be 2 or 3 years. If we get one more big storm, it's going to be washed out, we're going to lose property. We're going to have to get some sand from somewhere else, and then we're going to have to figure out getting a new city manager who can actually negotiate with people.
All right, we have 4 minutes left in this block, and I want to get to the issue of homelessness, because if you drive in downtown Sarasota, that is primarily what's on your mind. And as I said last night, I have never seen the numbers of people on the streets in the downtown area since I took my family to Philadelphia on vacation. And there's been the debate about whether or not to put a shelter in the city itself or outside the city limits. It seems the county and the city have not been able to work together to actually solve this problem. And Patrick, what would you do?
Well, first of all, it's a humanitarian crisis. And one of the first things is understanding the diversity of the type of people that are being dealt with. And what I would do going forward is actually implementing much of what's already been done. I understand there's concerns of people about what they see in terms of homeless. Mostly it's the panhandlers that are out there on the street that are bothering people. But I live downtown. This is something that I deal with on a daily basis. When I go walking in the morning, I see the homeless waking up when I'm walking downtown. In fact, over the last 3 years, we've seen a significant decrease in the number of the people. I advocated for putting the benches back in 5 Points Park, and they're back there now, and they're being used by residents and visitors. They're not being used by the homeless there. So the Downtown Condo Association has been a leader in putting forward plans that will actually help the police when they're talking about their education process, their encouragement process to get people to take the services, and then the enforcement. And so it's now at the point where the people have been educated and encouraged, and the enforcement factors come in to get those people off the street. And the mental health is the next thing that we're really tackling now.
Fred?
Yes, we have a tremendous amount of homeless that are visible. What basically happened in downtown, we had an influx of tremendously high-rise condos, and the people that moved in those condos didn't want the homeless in their front yards, which were the city parks and streets. The homeless have always been down there. All my life I can remember being entertained by homeless people downtown. But what happens now is that there are more people that live down there, which we didn't have 5, 10 years ago, and they are offended and feel like they are being imposed upon by these people that are indigent. But we got a multiplicity of problems with the homeless. They're not only veterans, they are families, they are people that just can't find a job, they are sick people and mentally ill. And we have to work together to create this safety net that's going to help make this work.
Martin?
Well, I qualify this and to say I'm the only one who's actually said outright, I'm going to donate my salary for the whole 4 years to homeless and mental health charities. But charity does begin at home. We have 50,000 people here. This is a statewide and a national issue. We simply don't have the resources to go with this homeless first, housing first proposition, in the sense that if we were to build 500 and were to fill it up and it was going to cost us 10 grand a year, that's $5 million. Then it'd be full. Then what are we going to do? Another 500? Another 500?
Gentlemen, let me stay on this for just a moment, because it would seem that this area has more of an acute problem than other area communities. You do not see it as intense in places like St. Petersburg or Tampa or large metropolitan.
My number one concern when I think of homelessness is I would like to see find housing for veterans. There's one homeless veteran is too much for me, so that's the number one priority, and that's through a lot of affordable housing if you can find them, avenues to find the right places. But having said that, the nonprofits have had tremendous amount of momentum, and we need to keep forward and bring the nonprofits together so we can actually tackle these issues. Another thing that I would like to bring up is the mental health issues. When it comes to homeless, instead of giving them $1, give them $1 of advice. There's nonprofits there to help them out. And that's all they need is someone just to talk to. So as a city leader, I have compassion for the homeless.
Patrick, real quick.
Clearly, the veterans was the first group that was addressed earlier, 2.5 years ago, and that problem has been resolved mostly. And right now, we advocated last year for the comprehensive treatment court from Judge Erica Quartermain, and they got the state funding, the county funding, and the city funding, and the downtown improvement district funding to make that happen. And that's now underway. It's been kicked off, and they've got the money to put people into treatment programs.
Let's take a quick break, and when we return, we'll have final closing statements from our candidates, so stay with us. Time for closing statements from our candidates. Each one of you will get a minute, and Fred, we'll start with you.
Good day. I'm Fred Atkins. I'm the person you know. I would like for you to vote for the person you know that has been willing to participate in this process and bring energy and vitality to the city of Sarasota and throughout this community. I think that it is time for Fred Atkins to come back to the City Commission and help us resolve some of these present day issues. I think that without a doubt that I am the candidate that has the most understanding of the issues, that has participated in the issues in a holistic way from birth. And I think that now is the time that we, hey, don't be misled. We need to vote for Fred, because I'm the person that will lead us out of this process and help to remedy some of these situations and help create opportunities for all the people of the city of Sarasota, not only in housing, but jobs, economic development, and entrepreneurship.
Martin, you get 1 minute.
Okay, well, I'm a successful local business owner. I purchased a broke and failing company losing $6,000 a month in 1999. That company now has 5 times higher gross sales and generates millions of dollars in revenue, which in part goes towards funding a better Sarasota. We did it by going back to basics, from how we answered the phone to listening better to our clients' needs. I'm open-minded and I'll listen to everyone. We need more than a wish list. We need a comprehensive plan on all city issues, from our $150 million pension deficit, funding public safety, not reducing the number of police officers, managing homeless issues, addressing the interests of the majority over the few vocal ones. I'm the only candidate endorsed by the police and the firefighters, and I'm asking for the endorsement of the electorate on March the 14th.
All right, Mikhail.
I'm an immigrant from Sweden. I moved here when I was 3 years old, and I've been here since 1986. Successful business, my family business, since 1986. And so I was raised in Sarasota, and so Sarasota is the identity that I have. I could have had an opportunity to move back to Sweden, and I decided, you know what, Florida's my home. Sarasota, Florida's my home. So I'm here to run to bring in a fresh perspective, less stale bread in City Hall and more fresh bread. I'd like to see solar panels more implemented. Maybe Bobby Jones golf carts could be operated via solar. You could have Arlington Pool heated via solar. You know, we're living in the 21st century, but I feel like a lot of this technology is from the 20th century. So I'm here to bring us forward to a new era, and I'm for green energy. I have passion for what I believe in, and I will sit there long enough with someone else to get through a point of a disagreement and saying that we have one issue that we agree on, let's get it done. I don't limit myself by ideologies.
Patrick, you get 1 minute.
Thank you. Thank you. Sarasota is at a pivotal time in its history. And the city is changing. We see it around us every day. And what needs to change is the city commission, the city management, the codes. I am the change agent because my career was built on change in the technology industry, and I rose to be very successful, to be appointed to actually lead a United Nations economic development team. So I know how to bring the economic development to a point where it actually can be done in a way that protects the environment. Our city has great plans and goals for that. And I'm a leader that will be able to actually implement those goals by making sure that we adjust our code to affect that. We want to be able to create a good environment and protect the environment, at the same time preserving the neighborhoods, which as a neighborhood leader I've been able to demonstrate through a track record of actually standing up for the neighborhoods there, and bringing that together with the ability to solve business problems and negotiate and create a final solution that's practical.
All right. Thanks to all the candidates for being here tonight. Fred Atkins, Martin HYDE, Mikhail Sandstrom, and Patrick Gannon. They are all on the ballot this Tuesday for Sarasota City Commission. And you could watch yesterday's full debate with the other candidates. It is available on Apple TV, Amazon Fire, and Roku. When we return, we'll have a final look at your weather. Plus, could Florida soon become the worst state in the entire nation for mental health funding? The state Senate is considering a plan to slash tens of millions of dollars for services. We'll have the details in our primetime headlines.